The Quran explicitly pronounces God's infinite mercy for all creatures. In this episode, we'll discuss Ibn Arabi's view of the vastness of the Divine Mercy. According to him, the Divine Mercy is the root of all motion and the origin of creation. In the Quran it is stated, He said, I cause my punishment to smite whomsoever I will, though my mercy includes all things. Gods know that the mercy of God encompasses everything, both in actual reality and possibility. In general, we regard mercy as something that fundamentally implies an attitude of protecting, caring, nurturing, pity, an attitude based on an essentially emotive attitude. Ibn Arabi comprehends mercy more than that. He regards mercy as an ontological foundation that begins this realm of existence. In other words, mercy is closely related to the ontological fact that the act of manifesting or giving existence is based on the mercy. Ibn Arabi asserts, since every essence has an existence which it seeks from God, His mercy encompasses every essence. For with the mercy by which He is merciful, He fulfills the essence's request to have existence and then brings it into existence. For this reason, we said that God's mercy includes everything, both in actual reality and possibility. Everything, even as permanent entities, has a desire to be actualized. God's mercy clearly includes this kind of ontological desire. The desires of these permanent entities which are then actualized by God's mercy are preparedness for the permanent entities. In fact, furthermore, the preparedness itself is also the bestowal of mercy that exists when the most holy emanation, Faithul Aqdas, occurs. Al-Qashani explains this matter. The permanent entities in their latent state have only an intelligible existence as objects of God's knowledge. By themselves, they have no actual existence. They are desirous of actual existence and are asking for it from God. When the permanent entities are in such a state, God's essential mercy extends to every permanent entity by giving it a capacity to receive an ontological divine self-manifestation. This receptivity, or the essential preparedness for receiving existence, is exactly the entity's desire for actual existence. Thus, the very first effect of the essential mercy upon a permanent entity appears in the form of its natural aptitude for receiving existence. This aptitude is called preparedness. God exercises mercy upon a permanent entity even before it has preparedness for existence by existentiating the preparedness itself through the most holy emanation. It is the essential self-manifestation occurring in the unseen. Thus, the preparedness of a permanent entity is itself a result of divine mercy upon it. For previous to that, the permanent entity, properly speaking, has no existence if only to ask for its own preparedness. Al-Qashani's elucidation explicates that the exercise of divine mercy is God's self-manifestation, or the tajalli, which we have discussed many times. Considering the fact that the bestowal of existence, or wujud, upon everything, both from nothingness to potential and from potential to actualization, is the bestowal of mercy, and the bestowal of wujud is the tajalli, it means the exercise of the divine mercy is nothing but the tajalli. Furthermore, it is nothing but the bestowal of mercy to God Himself. Let's review the process of God's self-manifestation in the light of this ontological mercy. God, the divine names, belong to the genus of things and they derive from one essence. The first thing God's mercy encompassed was the thingness of the essence which brought into existence mercy through mercy. The first thing mercy encompassed is itself, then its thingness, to which we have alluded. Then the second thing mercy encompassed is the thingness of every existent which is brought into existence, and endingly with respect to this word and the next, accidents and atoms, composed and simple things. Ibn Arabi's passage is vague enough that we need further investigation. The second sentence denotes the appearance of divine mercy. Itacha describes it nicely. In the bosom of the absolute, or the abysmal darkness, there appears first a faint foreboding, a presentiment, so to speak, of the mercy. Since, however, the mercy, before it begins positively to manifest itself, is a non-existent. It needs something which would bestow upon it existence. That is another mercy preceding it. But there can be no mercy preceding the divine mercy. The only possibility then is that the divine mercy is exercised upon itself. The self-mercy of the mercy constitutes the very first stage in the appearance of mercy. Looking at the same situation from the point of view of the ontological divine self-manifestation, we might describe it as the first appearance of a forbidding of existence, and the appearance of a forbidding or possibility of existence in the absolute means nothing else than the absolute becoming conscious of itself as existence. It is the self-manifestation of the absolute to itself. And in terms of emanation to which reference has been made, this stage represents the beginning of the most holy emanation of the Absolute. After that, although completely independent of the temporal order, the object of mercy is the thingness of that essence, that is the absolute divine essence, which with his own mercy brings mercy into existence. The unknowable that or essence then turns into a thing through the first manifestation of his own mercy. The stage when al-Haq obtains thingness is like Hita's self-objectification. This is the appearance of self-awareness viewed from the perspective of al-Haq, and, despite its total absence viewed from the cosmos, is the appearance of a faint light that begins the dawn of existence. Although at this stage nothing exists at all other than al-Haq, what we call creation in theological terms has already begun to operate. The second stage of the appearance of mercy is the establishment of the thingness of the divine names or permanent entities referred to in the third sentence. At this stage, the mercy which has made the unknown essence into a thing now extends to encompass all the names and bestows existence upon them. The divine names are then given thingness and thereby become things. This is also emphasized in the first sentence, which we have also discussed in the episode The Essence and Divine Names. The second stage, viewed from the perspective of the occurrence of Tajalli, marks the completion of the most holy emanation. At this stage, although there is absolutely no smell of existence or still in the unseen realm, all things or permanent entities can be recognized. It is no longer totally indiscriminable, because they which are the essential forms of entities are divine names, which are nothing but the disclosure of al-Haq by unveiling himself to these essential forms. In relation to the creaturely cosmos, these essential forms which constitute divine consciousness are the first determination in the essence or that. Izutsu explains, the thingness that arises at this stage is nothing other than the being of the permanent entities, and is therefore different from the thingness of the first stage. For all the existence at this stage, although they still maintain the essential unity peculiar to the first stage, have at the same time the meaning of being the totality of the essences which are in potentia divisible. And the mercy which is at work at this stage is the mercy of the divine names, and is to be distinguished from the mercy operating at the first stage, which is the mercy of the essence. Ibn Arabi's fourth sentence describes the third stage of the manifestation of mercy. After bringing the divine names into existence in the process of the most holy emanation, mercy causes individual things to appear as variously concrete actualizations or identifications of the divine names. This is what Ibn Arabi calls the holy emanation. The process of bestowal of mercy certainly never stops, even though the created world has come into being, because we know that the Tajalli has no end, which means there is no end for mercy to disperse itself. Ibn Arabi has a very impressive image regarding the emanation or manifestation of all things in the interiority of al-Haq. This is very useful to answer the question of how mercy arises from al-Haq. Quote, because of this surfeit it has, in order to relieve itself from the excess of inattention, he breathes out. The breath is attributed to the merciful and called the breath of the merciful, because he, under the name of the merciful, shows mercy by means of this breath toward the divine relations it has the names, and responds to that demand that the forms of the cosmos were brought into existence. Regarding the breath, we can certainly experience it if we try to hold our breath for some time. We feel unbearable pain because the compressed air in the chest wants to get out. It is a natural process that the breath held in the chest must seek an outlet, and finally it explodes and gushes forth with an unbearable outburst. Like the air that bursts forth from human chest, the compressed existence within the depth of Allah in the form of mercy gushes forth from him, and this is called the breath of the merciful, Nafas ar-Rahmani. As we know that mercy is the bestowal of existence, the breath of the merciful is a metaphor for the manifestation of Wujud, or the act of al-Haq to actualize entities. In Ibn Arabi's view, this is a condition when the divine names burst out into the real world of existence. The divine names are originally within the interiority of al-Haq, but since they are in the state of intense compression, the divine names gushed from the inside. This is more or less the proper imagery to explain the irresistible ontological mercy to be constantly bestowed. Ibn Arabi's commentator, Bali Afandi, explains the names previous to their existence in the outer world exist hidden in the essence of the Absolute, all of them seeking an outlet toward the world of external existence. The state is comparable to the case in which a man holds his breath within himself. The breath held within seeks an outlet toward the outside, and this causes in the man a painful sensation of extreme compression. Only when he breathes out does this compression cease. Just as the man is tormented by the compression if he doesn't breathe out, so the Absolute would feel the pain of compression if it didn't bring into existence the word in response to the demand of the names. The phenomenon of tanafus, or divine breathing, here is precisely the same as God's word be or kun to the creaturely cosmos. He breathes out, meaning that he brings something in his interiority to appear in the exterior realm, which also means that the word kun is he alone appears. It is important to note that in Ibn Arabi's view, this breathing is not a one-time activity in the past. On the contrary, the breath, which is the result of the divine names being held in the interiority of al-Haq, continues without intermission at all. This process is precisely what maintains the subsistence of the existence of the entire cosmos. So the breathing out is an ontological necessity which is exactly the same as the tajalli that always goes on in such a way with no pause. This also explains this ontological transformation, which Ibn Arabi sometimes calls emanation, is, in his view, a natural and necessary movement of being caused by the inner pressure of the ontological potentiality kept within the Absolute. Without this constant transformation, it as breathing out, the being would be compressed within beyond its extreme limit, and the essence of the Absolute would be in structurally the same situation as when we suffer an unbearable pain by holding our breath. Ibn Arabi states, nature precedes all that are born out of it with definite forms, but in reality nature is no other than the breath of the merciful, or the forms of the word become manifest in the latter, ranging from the highest forms to the lowest, in virtue of the spreading of the breath through the material substance in the world of physical bodies in particular. The breath spreads also through the being of the spirits of a luminous nature and the attributes, but that is another kind of the spreading of the breath. In the Sikat, we comprehend that the mercy arising from the breath of the merciful encompasses every single thing, from the starting point of divine consciousness to the endless. Mercy in this context is ontological. It sustains the realm of existence and permeates everything, both visible and unseen, inward and outward, and both in actual reality and possibility. This mercy is not indiscriminate and operates gratuitously. It is the mercy that is given freely because it is the essential mercy that embraces all things without exception, regardless of the good and the evil. In other words, this ontological mercy is like the bestowal of existence. That's why the Quran says, "My mercy includes all things." However, on the other hand, the Quran also says He has prescribed mercy for Himself, which means that God gives mercy because of one's act. Quote, the mercy is of two kinds: the mercy of gratuitous gift, Rahmat al-Imtinan, and the mercy of obligation, Rahmat al-Wujub, which corresponds to the All-Merciful and the All-Compassionate respectively. As the All-Merciful, He bestows His gift freely, and as the All-Compassionate, He is obliged to give gifts. This obligation derives from his bestowal. The all-compassionate is included in the all-merciful. That is because God decreed on himself mercy for the benefit of the servant. Because al-Haq mentions the acts carried out by the servant for which he deserves mercy. Thus, two kinds of mercy express two names of the giver of mercy. Al-Rahman is the giver of gratuitous gift, and al-Rahim is the giver based on the servant's act. Nevertheless, since the act of the second kind of mercy is special case, the name al-Rahim is included in the name al-Rahman. The important thing to remember is that the mercy of gratuitous gift embraces everything, including the divine name in the unseen realm. This point is explained by Ibn Arabi in the following way. God restricts the mercy of obligation and he restricts the mercy of gratuitous gift in his saying, "My mercy includes all things, even the divine names, that is, the realities of relationships." He bestows mercy of gratuitous gift on the divine names by the very act of bestowing existence to us. Thus we, the whole cosmos, are the result of the mercy of gratuitous gift through the divine names and the lordly relationships. The universal and unconditional nature of the mercy of gratuitous gift is beyond good and evil. In other words, al-Haq bestows the mercy of gratuitous gift regardless of whether the one to be given is good or evil. There is no good and there is no evil in this respect. The mercy of gratuitous gift has nothing to do at all with good or evil things. The actual appearance of good or evil is only the result of the act of the mercy of obligation, while the mercy of gratuitous gift disperses everything with no exception. Therefore, everything without exception is on the straight path. Ibn Arabi maintains, the straight path belongs to God. It is universally manifest, not hidden. His essence exists in young and old people, in the ignorant and in the knower. For this reason, his mercy includes everything, be it despicable or exalted. There is no creature which he doesn't seize its forelock. Verily, my Lord acts according to a straight path. Every moving creature walks according to God's straight path. Those who walk according to the straight path are not the objects of God's anger in this respect, nor do they go stray. Just as going straight is accidental, so is the divine wrath, and all things go back to God's mercy, which includes everything and precedes his wrath. Everything in the cosmos moves under the guidance of al-Haq on the straight path. This means that everything is good and is approved by God because his mercy includes anything. Everything acts according to the manifestation of the names of which it happens to be an embodiment. Hence the statement that a thing is neither good nor evil applies here. Seeing that al-Haq bestows his mercy on something, we know that fundamentally everything is purely good. However, Ibn Arabi also admits that there is the other side of the divine mercy, that is wrath or ghadab. Ibn Arabi is aware of this, but regards both as an attribute in subordinate position in relation to mercy. He says, the very existence of wrath originates from the mercy of God for the wrath. Thus his mercy precedes his wrath. It is clear that mercy is essentially an attribute of al-Haq, while wrath is only a secondary aspect that arises when a thing is not able to receive mercy in its perfect form. Al-Qashani explains it as follows. Mercy pertains essentially to al-Haq because the latter is by essence bounteous. Wrath, however, is not of the essence of al-Haq. On the contrary, it is simply a negative property that arises from the absence of receptivity on the part of some of the things for a perfect manifestation of the effects of existence and the various properties of existence. The absence of receptivity in some of the things for mercy entails the non-appearance of mercy in those things, whatever in this world or the hereafter. And the fact that divine mercy is prevented from overflowing into a thing of this kind because of its non-receptivity is called wrath in relation to that particular thing. Thus it is patent that mercy has precedence over wrath with regard to al-Haq. For wrath is nothing but the actual non-receptivity of the locus which is supposed to receive mercy in a perfect form. To sum up, mercy is one of the key concepts that characterizes the structure of Ibn Arabi's thoughts regarding Wujud. Actually, another key concept quite close to mercy but less important is love, mahabbah, which we'll discuss another time. See you.